Continuing with our series of discussing the Indian DPDP Act, let's talk today in this video about the role of a consent manager under the Indian DPDP Act. Welcome to my YouTube channel where you daily see new content on data privacy, and as I mentioned right now, we are going to talk about the role of a consent manager. That the data principal knows what information is being processed and why. Before moving on to the role of the consent manager, I would like to touch base upon the various definitions under data privacy under the Indian DPDP Act. To begin with, it's what's personal data. Personal data is a piece of information or a set of informations that can help you identify an individual. Right? It could be a direct one, it could be an indirect one. His name, address, phone number, email ID, a combination of these because name is not generally unique. So a combination of these informations is medical records, genetics, biometrics, financial records, religious sentiments, any such thing is personal domain, is personal data. And if any of them is misused, and that would obviously create harm, especially on some information, for example, losing your financial information or you're losing your biometrics, then that particular set of personal information is called sensitive personal data. And sensitive personal data is being processed with more checks and balances than the routine personal data. People need to be a bit more cautious about handling them. Then we look at the definition of the word process. What is process? Process is the process of following either of these 5 activities on a personal data. What are these activities? Collecting personal data, storing personal data, using personal data, disclosing personal data, and destroying personal data. Collecting, storing, using, disclosing, and destroying personal data comes under processing of data. So collecting personal information from someone, storing it on your storage, processing it, sharing it with a third party, or destroying it. So if your organization does any of these 5 for any Indian citizen in a digitized format, then you are supposed to be compliant with your Indian DPDP Act 2023. The purpose and the process needs to be very specific, explicit, and legitimate. We come on to data principal, the individual whose personal data has been collected and is being processed. If it is a child less than 18 years of age, then you need to have the parent or the guardian as a person. If it's a person with a disability, then you need to have the lawful guardian along with in the definition or in the detail of the data principal. Then you move on to other terminologies like what is fiduciary. Fiduciary is the organization or the individual who is going to decide the mechanism of how our data is going to be processed. How is it collected? Where is it stored? What precautions are being taken when it's stored? Right? The security. How is it being processed? What would be the likely outcome? For how long is it going to be retained, and how will it be destroyed? The mechanism is defined by the data fiduciary. And if it's a large organization, like I love the example of a bank. So a bank is a very large organization. It has personal data of millions of customers. And for many of these customers, that personal data is processed in multiple formats. Saving account, demat account, current account, loans, credit cards, right? So such organizations are called significant data fiduciaries. They need to have their own internal data protection officers as well. And you can check on videos on the role of data protection officer on my channel. Then we move on to data processor. Who is a data processor? The organization that is finally processing the data as per the guidelines of the data fiduciary. They are the ones who are actually processing. So fiduciary is creating the mechanism, and processor is the one who is actually processing as per the mechanism defined by the fiduciary. And consent manager is the set of people who are responsible for obtaining the consent of the principal for processing the data. Right? It's the job of the consent manager to obtain the consent from the principal that they are going to process the data. What are the detailed roles of a consent manager? He has to facilitate the collection of an informed consent. He is responsible for creating the consent form, giving them the granular facility, clarifying with the data principal as to what is the purpose of collection, ensuring that the data principal has understood the purpose of collection and there is no ambiguity at a later stage. Then collect the consent and manage it. Where is the consent being stored? How are you sure? Tomorrow if something goes wrong and there is a verification required, what mechanism do you have to prove that the consent was originally taken? He is supposed to enable and facilitate even the withdrawal of consent. Right? We talked about withdrawal of consent. It also has one of the user rights that the DPDP Act 2023 gives to its data principals. They can withdraw the consent at any point in time. Consent manager has to form the withdrawal process, which also includes, and I'll tag my video on it, which also includes defining the impact of withdrawal of consent on the given data principal or the reason for rejection of the withdrawal of consent. Right? You can look at that video and get into further details of it. Transparency and user communication. So every time there's a change in the process, every time you introduce something new, it has to be informed to the data principals in a very, very timely fashion. You cannot delay that information or that communication. You need to comply with the regulatory standards, Indian DPDP Act, align the process with the DPDP Act, maintain all the records of consent-related activities. Very, very important. You should have all the details of consent-related activities, because if there is a gap, if there is a breach, if there is a litigation, then you need to provide the documents and proof that a proper consent explaining the purpose was obtained from the given data principal. The consent manager actually acts as a bridge between the fiduciary who has defined the purpose and the principal who processes the collected data. Right? So it's a layer in between. This is the fiduciary, this is the principal, consent manager sits in between. Right? So that's about the consent manager as per the Indian DPDP Act 2023. I hope you like the content of my video. Please press the like and the icon. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and share your feedback in the comment section. Thank you.